anyone wants to jump in, or otherwise I have a follow-up question, because you mentioned Panasonic earlier, and I'm curious if you had made the decision, do we give the public a freebie to trial? Is this worthwhile? Is there value in doing this?
When you say the public as opposed to
you had identified some photography fans.
Yeah. So actually the desire came from the brand, and I think Panasonic had recognised the fact that there were online communities that they could be approaching, but they weren't really sure how to do that. And I think, that in itself throws up a point, which is that, not all brands will be at a stage where they're necessarily keen to engage online. They could see the opportunity, and I think for them they felt it was very valuable to the extent that it's really become a kind of best practice within the business, which is great. But I mean, in some sectors, for instance, the pharmaceutical sector, it's a very highly regulated environment.
Giving freebies from the pharmaceutical industry would be a little problematic, I'd imagine.
Exactly, and because it's so highly regulated, you can't put people in a context where they could be having open conversations in an online environment. It just, it's not, the environment's not set up for that sort of dialogue.
Does anybody else have an opinion about?
I think one of the driving factors behind this is that PR has started to talk more to the search engine optimization function inside the company, because there is a value in the day a product launches, having a whole bunch of photos already on Flickr about the product and how it works. Maybe some videos of people unboxing the product on YouTube because they've been given a sneak peek. And this kind of information is what populates the front page of Google or whatever search engine you're using. And that has immense value, because if you're launching a product that you want people to buy a day after it's launched, it's going to take a bit of time to get that stuff out there. But by researching who's influential online, outside of the media sphere, maybe it might be bloggers who'd like to have a bit of a figgle, and they're going to be the real enthusiasts. That's of real value to the search engine optimization people, not just the PR and marketing and comms people. And that's the kind of thing we're starting to see happening more often now.
Yeah, just to add to that, I'll give the contrarian view in that case based on what I see. I don't see an awful lot of real engagement happening. I see a lot of all that going on, absolutely, but it doesn't seem to me to be authentic, to introduce that word, which I haven't heard yet today. Little getting to know that niche, truly get to know them in this social way that we all like to talk about. I see a lot of activity, and by the way, I am deliberately painting just the black picture at the moment, because there is a kind of contrast. There is a good side to the dark side. You see people going through these motions of joining these social networks and kind of reaching out to people, but it doesn't ring true. And yet I can't tell you what is the way that does ring true. It's like all kinds of human interaction where you're using a medium to do that. Something most times to me and a lot of people I know, it doesn't seem right, in which case you don't respond, because it's not genuine really. So the notion, for instance, of a brand being a Facebook person is ridiculous in my opinion. It's about people, not brands, because someone represents the brand. So you need to connect on that human level. And again, I can't tell you exactly what it is. What I know is from my own experience, I know it when it works, because I respond. And yet that's 1%, 1 in 100 actually. So we still got to figure this out. And unfortunately, no one's yet written the manual, because I've not seen it.
Keith, I wanted to ask you, as the brand, or as the client, as they say in the business, your perspective on this. The title of this session is about bringing the public back into public relations. If you are engaging the public, there is a whole new way to measure the impact of the campaign that you have. With traditional media, you count the clips. What do you do in a scenario like this, where you are asking the public to be part of the campaign effort?
It's interesting that you use the word campaign there, because we don't see it from a campaign perspective. I was thinking before that, with the title of the conference, which is, it's about influence, and there's a sort of a feeling, okay, well, we have a particular audience here, and we know that they're influential because there are various tools that we can use, and we can see their measure of influence, whether it's some Technorati ranking or Google page ranking and so on. But it's not about trying to target individuals and then somehow trying to influence the conversation from a point of view of, oh, well, we need, to target these people. It's not really about that. I think when you start to do that, it's the wrong approach. The way that I see it is that companies really have to see this as a brand ambassador program, in the same way that when you're enthusiastic about your company and your product, and you go and talk to your friends, and you go and talk to your neighbours, the enthusiasm that you have for your product and your service comes through. It's not that you're trying to sell them anything. And if we can step back and not try and think of influential bloggers as a target audience, but more of people who are enthusiastic and passionate about the subject, and having a conversation with them because you're enthusiastic and passionate about your product and service, and trying to get that through in the conversation. I think that's really how we need to view it, and not view them as being targets.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
I mean, you kind of know that when you see it, don't you? I mean, when you read someone, let's say, has written a blog post, let's just stick with that medium, that you can tell from the writing and the content, I mean, the whole focus, that person really is passionate about whatever he or she's talking about. And that is like any human interaction. You can't ignore it. It hits you. And if it strikes a chord with you, you will engage because you have an opinion. It provokes something in you, good or bad, whatever it is, to criticize it or to support it or whatever. And that's really what we're looking for, whether it's on an individual level or whether it's somebody writing on behalf of an organization. And there are plenty of examples of that around. And this is not talking about PR per se. This is about someone who's got a point of view about something, expressing it in a blog or commenting on someone else's, which is when you then get on the comments thing in particular, into that area of, I think, which is a valid point. Do you disclose? Do you join in? How do you engage? What do you say? How do you go about it? And a lot of people have those questions, which I think are legitimate questions. To me, the answer is quite simple. Just be yourself. Be passionate. That's how you engage. That is one of the ways, I should say, how you engage with people. It stimulates something in other people based on how you behave. So it's kind of, I think, more or less supporting what you're saying there, Keith, really.
And I think that in turn throws up some challenges for businesses, because that's not the way that they're necessarily structured. I mean, traditionally PR's been about
control.
Yes, absolutely, and also numbers of hits, numbers of broadcast opportunities, etc. We're now moving from that broadcast model to much more of a narrowcast one, where actually the connections are on a much smaller scale. Most brands, most businesses aren't set up with a 200-strong comms team where they can allocate people to have those passionate relationships on a day-to-day basis with people. And I think that one of the things that we feel is that we try and do work with businesses to try and help them understand more about this space, because as several people have said, it is changing, it's evolving all the time. People are experimenting, there's new things to be learned, whether it's technology or actually from a practitioner standpoint, and it's experimental, and some brands are moving into that quite comfortably and confidently and learning, and others are lagging a bit more, or taking it at a pace that's appropriate for them. I think that's very much how it's going to play out over the next few years, that people are going to be experimenting and finding a niche, a level of interaction that works for them, that they're comfortable with.